guys, this is Scribbling Angel. In this video, I'll be talking a little bit about dip pens and cartridge pens. I will be covering only one type of dip pen. However, much of the material applies to other types as well. In many dip pens, there is a slit in the center of the nib. This allows ink to flow to the end. You will also notice that there's a curved shape to the body. This keeps the ink from flowing out all at once. Now, the ink that I use is jet black India ink. I use this because it's very dark, dries fast on paper, and is water soluble. So when it gets on clothes or skin, it's easy to wash off. There are also a couple things that I always use when working with dip pens. First, it's important to have something to keep your pen clean. You can use soft washcloths, paper towels, tissues, or even rags. I use toilet paper because it's cheap and you can get a lot of it. And it's softer on the nib than most other materials. Getting into the habit of cleaning your pen constantly is good. If the ink is allowed to dry into the nib, it can cause a lot of trouble later on. Secondly, I use newspaper or a marked up piece of sheet paper to catch ink spills and to write on to get the ink to flow. And third is a small washcloth or small towel to wipe my hands and to keep them from marring my paper up. Now I'm going to talk about the dip pen and how it works. As you can see, I've already dipped it and it's ready to go. So when drawing, it's important to keep the ink face down because it allows for better flow. The speed of the stroke will determine the thickness of your lines. Slow strokes for thick lines, fast strokes for thinner lines. The amount of ink in the nib will also affect this. Lines tend to get even thinner with less ink. Now, to produce thin lines that are more consistent with each other, you move the pen from side to side. As you can see, this will give you a fairly even line all the way through the stroke. The pen does not work if it's on its side, so keeping it totally face down on the paper is important. Keep in mind that too much time spent in a single area will cause the pen to bleed out. So when doing detailed work, it's not the same as using a marker. Speed is important. Also realize whenever you do a stroke, it will bleed out a little bit, so be prepared for that little bit of bleed. Now, when you're finished with your pen, it's very important to keep it clean. Normally, I put it under a faucet with scalding water coming out of it, but for the purposes of this video, I will use boiled water in a cup. Same concept. Remember to clean it well, and don't slack off like I had, because as soon as the ink dries onto the nib, it's much more difficult to remove. Now, a technique that I use when inking with a dip pen is as follows. Dip, tap, draw on a scrap paper or newspaper until the ink begins to flow, then move to your artwork. This will help you avoid sudden bursts of ink from the nib, which has marred many of my pieces. Also, remember to cap your ink bottle for two reasons. Ink dries, and it's really hard to filter out the clumps. Not impossible, but it's a pain. 2, ink will go bad. How do you tell if it's bad? Well, at first it smells very sweet, but once it's gone bad, it has a very distinct, nasty odor. Now we move on to cartridge pens and how they work. There are 3 parts to a cartridge pen: the body, the nib, and the cartridge itself. 4 if you count the cap to the pen. Now when loading your cartridge, you take it and push it into the nib. This will open the seal, and it can never be sealed again, which is why I will not be doing this part of the construction. Once you have inserted the cartridge, you screw on the body and you're ready to go. How the pen actually works is that the ink flows from the cartridge to the nib. On a personal note, I rarely use my cartridge pen. It takes quite a bit of practice to use it and doesn't produce the same effects as dip pens, but it is cleaner. And there you have it, my brief discussion on dip pens and cartridge pens. I hope you guys enjoyed this and that it was helpful to you. Please leave a message below telling me what you thought of this video, and please remember to favorite and share this video if you think it'll be helpful to others. Subscribe to my channel for more art and art-related content. It's been awesome, guys. Peace.